It's the greatest podcast in the history of the world.
It goes high up and under the full forward. McKINNON's taken a ripper!
He has a bounce, he crosses 50, he pins the ears back, and he drills the goal!
All the latest news and views from around the VAFA.
Here's the big man!
Big goal.
He's done it again! This bloke extracts some of the finest from outside the arc. It's a long bomb from outside the arc!
This is for the love of the game.
You can tweet that and hashtag it bloody good.
Hey everybody, welcome to For the Love of the Game, our round 3 in review. Round 3 delivered 5 clear-cut results. Teams continue to sort out the early pecking order. We're going to go through all the sections up and down right throughout the VAFA and work out exactly who's sitting where right now. The teams themselves still trying to work that out. Brayden May and Matthew Donald, welcome.
Hello, Jason, Brayden, and hello, everyone. And yes, Premier Men's just very early on, but just starting to take a little bit of a shave, and teams just trying to finally sort of figuring out where they sit in the pecking order, which is always a good thing for us, certainly to try and anticipate what's to come. But another really good weekend of footy. It was really good to be at University Oval on Saturday, Uni Blacks and Old Trinity, but looking forward to unpacking the entire weekend with you two today.
No, it was really exciting. As we said, there's a bit of a pecking order. I, for one, can't work it out. It is unbelievable. From week to week, we're getting surprise results. We'll touch on Old Trinity in a second. Probably a surprise result there with their win and just how they did it. It's really exciting. I was just saying before, like, this is so unpredictable up and down the sections. There's great stories emerging. There's new players we're meeting. Some older names we're familiar with still putting together huge performances. This could go anywhere, and I think as we get closer to our first bye of the season for the Big V game, it's going to really shape up interesting.
Yeah, the Big V squads for the senior men and women will come out later in the week. More on that next week, but certainly looking up and down through all the different sections, in most of them we've got maybe 1 or 2 at the most undefeated teams. In fact, there might be 1 that has 3, and then only 1 or 2 winless teams, and then everyone else is in this logjam in the middle of the ladders, which just shows how even the VAFA competition is, again, from top to bottom in 2026. Let's start with Premier Men's, William Buck Premier Men's. 2 teams remain undefeated, 1 remains winless, and the closest game of the round was at Melbourne University Oval. It didn't shape that way, though. You were out there, Matty, until after half-time. Old Trinity were given a decent scare before steadying to post an excellent win over Uni Blacks. The Tees just played irresistible football in the first half, got a flying start for a second week in a row, kicked 4 goals to 1, led by 20 points at quarter time, booted another 5 in the second term. They were 40 points up at the main break, and then when Achilles Panopoulos took a mark and goal 2 minutes into the third term, it was 46 points the difference. And Old Trinity looked to be heading for a comfortable percentage-boosting win, but someone forgot to tell the Blacks.
Yeah, no, it was an amazing game of football, really. You mentioned that first half. Old Trinity were just outstanding with the ball. They were prepared to move it and plan at all costs. They really attacked University Blacks, and it was a really impressive performance from them in the first half. And
how do they put the teams to the sword so quickly? Because we've seen them do it a couple of times now. They did it to Zabs as well. They just left Zabs flat-footed in that first term at Toorak Park a couple of weeks back.
They just take on the game at every opportunity. They just want to, as soon as they get the ball, they want to run it and go. They're not prepared to sort of chip it around side to side and play possession, slow, ponderous football. They really want to go and win games rather than wait for the game to come to them. And that was particularly evident in the first half. I mean, the way they moved the ball, they caught Uni Blacks on the hop, particularly in that first term, and only built from there. It was a good bit of resistance, though, from Uni Blacks in that third term, 6 goals to 2. I think they got it back to single figures at one point.
Got to 8 points.
Yeah, no, they were making a really good run at it, Uni Blacks.
Went from 46 points to 8 points in 26 minutes.
It was a very good third term from the Blacks, and a bit of an indication of what they're still capable of. We know they're a side that were in finals contention last year after a bit of a slow start, which is what they've got to try and overcome again this time around. But credit to Donald McDonald and his boys. They were able to settle, and it was a bit of an arm wrestle final quarter as well. Only 2 goals kicked. Both of them went to the tees. And that's, in the end, what allowed them to come away with it, with what looked a reasonably comfortable win in the end, but it wasn't. It didn't feel like it was going to be that way at three-quarter time, that's for sure.
28 points in the end for Old Trinity. They win by back-to-back wins. They jump up into the top 4. The Blacks remain winless. Their inability to switch on for a full 4 quarters, costing them victory now, Brayden, 3 weeks in a row. They've played great footy in patches. We think about they had Haileybury on the rack in round 1, but then got done in the final quarter against the Blues. They got beaten by the two-headed blue monster we'll talk about a little later, Grimley and Stewart. And then in this game, they just gave the Tees too big a head start.
Yeah, and it's hard to say, but these are the results that can come back to bite you later in the season because you're behind the 8 ball. They're games you walk away thinking we should have won. We're off 5% for that 5-10 minute patch, and good footy sides I'll put you away as Old Trinity did. Donald McDonald must be a great pre-game speaker. Like, you must want to run through walls for him, because to start like that, like starting a game isn't always easy because you're thinking you're playing the game over in your head. So to do that is outstanding. But he said he was very pleased that they could back it up with a win. He admits that the Blacks were all over him in the third quarter. They got within 2 goals. Gave a shout out to Alex Emery for his big game. That now they go to St Bernard's. The Snow Dogs are. He points out the Snow Dogs have been up for a while, so they're accustomed to the speed of tempo footy and of A grade. But what I love, as you touched on, Matty, they're taking the game on. They're not going to die wondering.
Alex Emery was outstanding, wasn't he?
He was. He kicked 2 critical goals. He kicked one on half-time to push the margin way out to 40 points. It was a terrific slips catch he took in the lead up to it as well. And then got that all-important first goal, the final term, when still Uni Blacks were coming in.
Points,
and that was just that first goal in the last quarter was always going to be a critical one. And for him to get it, a little bit of a something out of a nothing goal in the end. But every bit is important, though, for Old Trinity. It was a big performance from him.
Tom Sinclair kicked 4 for the Blacks.
Yeah, he was very good, and he led the charge as well, particularly in the third term. He got them on the board in the first term with the first goal of the game, but he was the one who really got things going for them when they made that charge, 6 goals to 2 in the third term. He was certainly at the heart of it. Kicked a couple of beautiful set shots. There was some really good goal kicking that third term for the Blacks. So he had a very good game up forward, though.
Matty, I feel like the Blacks are better than a 0-3 side. They're playing better footy than that. What does Dale Bauer think?
Well, Dale Bauer said that they were completely outworked by Old Trinity in the first half, which is evident by the fact that they were 40 points down at the main break. He acknowledged the spirit that they showed, and they played great Blacks footy in the third term, which got them back into the contest, gave them an opportunity to win the game, but they couldn't get it done in the last, and that they've got to be able to figure a way out past it, because 0-3, they've got to find a way to start winning games now.
So after they're opening 3 weeks on the road, that's the other thing for Trinity. They've pulled a couple of road wins out of that first 3 weeks on the road. They now go home to play their first Premier Men's home game since 2022. They'll host St Bernard's at Daly Oval. While the road doesn't get any easier for the Blacks, they'll head to Brighton Beach to try and snap Old Brighton's 20-game winning streak at home. Our next game, perennial contenders St Kevin's, and they avoided going 0-3 for the first time in a decade. They dominated St Bernard's at TH King. The Snow Dogs had never won there. They looked up for the fight early. They kicked the opening 2 goals, but then St Kevin's clicked into gear. They kicked 4 in 6 minutes, and they led by a couple of points at the first break, then took control in the second term. They held the Dogs scoreless. They peppered away themselves, 21 inside 50s to 4 in that second term for St Kevin's, but unfortunately they kicked 2 goals 8, so they didn't take full advantage. They still led by 18 points at half-time, but it really could have been a lot more. However, they did stick to the task. They continued their dominance after half-time and improved their conversion. They led by 49 points at the last change after kicking 6 goals to 1 in that third term. Noel Walsh was outstanding for the quarter. He had 13 and a goal. Another 4 goals to 2 in the last term. St Kevin's, their first win of the season, but also a critical percentage bump. In the end, it was 65 points, and that rocketed them all the way from last to 5th. With 1 win, which just shows how tight things are in Premier Men's at the moment. But they're the sort of just one-off performances early in a season that can just totally change how you frame your season. They all turn up to training now. They're just sitting on the outside of the top 4. Last week, they were turning up to training. They're sitting on the bottom and hadn't won a game. So that's how quickly things can change. So, Doug Kerr made a sparkling debut. 16 disposals and 4 goals on debut from him. He captained St Kevin's school team last year, so what a wonderful thing for them to be able to slot him in. He kicks 4. Jacob Kuzitsky continues to find his feet at his new club as well. He had 19, 11 marks and a goal. I mentioned Noel Walsh, he was best. 32, 8 tackles, 4 clearances, 2 goals. And Billy Coates, we talk about how dominant he is as a ruck. 29 disposals, 25 of those were contested, 48 hit-outs, 22 clearances.
Oh, gee.
That is a big day for Billy. Now, no Matt Soro for St Bernard's at the moment, so he's going up against sort of secondary rucks who are in there fighting and trying to learn the caper, and he just dominated on the weekend. So this result sets up a round 4 blockbuster at Melbourne Uni, though. St Kevin's will head to face Uni Blues, who are undefeated. What a game that is going to be. St Bernard's will look to snap their 7-game losing streak on the road. They'll head to Daly Oval to face the in-form Old Trinity. So a big win for St Kevin's in more ways than one. What did Anthony Lynch have to say, Brayden?
He just said they went back to the drawing board, stripped things right back during the week, had some pretty clear focuses, and the players delivered the message. He spoke highly of Hodges and Coates, the leaders. They showed the way early, and I guess everyone followed. I guess when in that sort of game, if St Bernard's get a run on early, if you're Scob, you start thinking, oh no, here we go again. But it just goes to show they're a high-quality football team. Lynch mentions he has great respect for St Bernard's, and it was a great day for the club to play for the JOC O'Connor Cup.
And from St Bernard's perspective, what did Steve Alessio make of the performance?
Yeah, he was disappointed with the overall performance. Started well, but it was it was from their pressure and their ability to impact the game that positive start came from. So Scott showed their ability to transition the ball with using plenty of speed and confidence throughout the day and beat them in the contest all day. And as a coach, it doesn't leave you with many options to try and improve the situation. Acknowledge that they've got a resilient group and they can take some positive signs away from the game. It was a younger side that they fielded at the weekend that it gives them something to build on in the coming weeks. Hopes to get a few of the senior brigade back this week, which will make a big difference. But yeah, not a great day at the office for St Bernard's.
Well, the latest chapter in the Scotch-Zabs rivalry was written at Campbell Sports Ground and made for pretty nice reading for those who follow the red and black. Zabs seized the early initiative. They dictated play. They led by 3 goals at quarter time. The Cards let themselves down with ball in hand. They were running at just 42% kick efficiency for the quarter in that opening term. They were held goalless and they had the breeze. Zabs kicked the only 3 majors of the opening quarter themselves. Game opened up a little more in the second term. Scotch still struggled to string together those possession chains, those uncontested possession chains that we know have been their trademark over the last couple of years and served them so well. But their pressure game was excellent, so it still managed to keep them in the game despite Zabs having more than their fair share of possessions. The visitors booted the opening 2 goals of the second term, did Zabs, got out to 29 points in front. The Cardinals then responded, kicked a couple of quick ones. The Zabs then kicked 4 in 7 minutes heading into time on. They led at half-time by 31 points. Then Scotch, to their credit, rolled up their sleeves in the third term. They got on top inside the contest, but again, they couldn't put it on the scoreboard, just 1-2 to 3-2 for the term. And then 4 old Zabs goals in 12 minutes in the last term put it beyond doubt. Zabs adding the finishing touches, a 54-point win, which is a really impressive result for them. Will Goss, 29 touches, worked hard both ways. Sam Hansen had 26. Timely return for Alex Spralia. He returned in style, had 26 disposals, 36 hit-outs and 11 clearances. He just makes them a better football club every time, you can imagine. Charlie Cormack was great for Old Scotch. He had 33 touches and 6 rebound 50s. Zabs have now won 4 of their last 5 over the Cardinals. They'll welcome Caulfield Grammarians to Toorak Park this week, while Old Scotch will hit the road. They'll head to Princess Park to face Old Haileybury. That's going to be a fantastic game, that one.
That's going to be a really good game and a
You're
really
doing
important
that game, aren't you?
Yes,
That's our SEN game.
That is our SEN game, indeed, Jason. A really good game, really important game for both teams. The 4 points is going to be huge for the winner of this one.
From a Zabs perspective, Dan Donati, Nutsy must have been pleased.
Yeah, just played a straight bat pretty much. A really honest performance. He was pleased with how the boys responded. I guess that's what we've touched on when you want a response out of your players. If you get it, you know you're a good football side. Said they started well into the slight breeze and it just set the game up. Never an easy ground to navigate at Camberwell, I think we've touched on before. And Old Scotch, we know they're a quality side. And as he said, they were difficult to break down, but in the end, just an even team performance. And he was really happy with the tackling. One of the more underrated skills, I think, in modern footy is tackling.
Yeah, Old Scotch and Mark Nat.
Yeah, he wanted to pay respect to Nutsy and the boys. Thought they played really well. And they'll only get better with some of those key players coming back. You mentioned Spralia. There's others to come as well. But they were able to maintain the intensity and the clearance game with the Zabs for a fair while, but not possession of the football. And then when Zabs got their hands on the footy on transition, that's what ultimately killed them. Wanted to make special note of a couple of under-19s debutants as well, did Mark Nat. In Caleb Nankara and Bailey Burrows. Caleb played on Charlie McIsaac and did a reasonable job.
It's a fair job first up on debut. But there you go. This bloke's name's Charlie McIsaac. You might have heard of him.
Yeah, a bit of a baptism of fire. A bit of an unusual debut, though, for Bailey Burrows because he played a full reserves game that morning. So he was going to sleep well on the Saturday night. I think it's fair. 2 games back to back. He was gained some valuable experience as well as a quality opponent. So no credit to Bailey because it's hard enough playing one game at this level. Playing 2, that's a fair effort.
Yeah, Alex Noblet was pulled out of the side at last minute because North Melbourne VFL needed him. So they were down a player. So up stepped Bailey and made his debut. Old Brighton have won 11 straight now. They overcame an early barrage from Old Haileybury. Interesting game, this one at Princess Park. And if you weren't familiar with who the league leader actually was, you could have been excused for thinking it was the Bloods because throughout the first 45 minutes or so of this game, they were outstanding. They dominated stoppage. They capitalised on Old Brighton's errors. They kicked the only 4 goals of the opening term, and all of them were from turnover. So they were forcing Brighton in a turnover and punishing them, which is usually the other way around. It's one of the areas Brighton are so good at. They led by 23 points at quarter time, did Haileybury. They held the Tunners to a single point, which is the 3rd time the reigning champs have been held goalless in a first quarter since round 5 last year. But the other 2 times were both against Old Scotch. One of them was in the grand final. Ben Branson dribbled through Brighton's first goal of the day 1 minute into the second term. But the fight back, it did come, and we were all expecting it. It took a while to get a bit of steam up and going, though. It wasn't straight away. Back-to-back goals to Luke Travers and Charlie Richardson entering time on in the second term. It took until then. got a bit of reward for effort. And then Ben Pryor marked on his chest literally 2 seconds maybe before the halftime siren sounded. It was one of those real gut punches for old Haileybury. He kicked a goal, and suddenly, as well as they'd played, they only led by 9 points at halftime, the Bloods. The Tunners then upped the ante in the third term. They controlled possession. They shared it around. They snatched the lead. The Bloods got it back temporarily, but then 3 goals in 6 minutes from the Tunners in time on saw them get a couple of goals up. And then they finished the last term with authority. They held the Bloods scoreless. They kicked 6 unanswered goals themselves. The margin in the end blew out to 48 points. So that was a full 71-point turnaround from quarter time when Haileybury led by 23. They lost by 48. Luca McNabb, who must be in Woodrow calculations at this early stage of the year. Another 34 touches for him. Max Lowen had 27. Harry Hill had 25. Jasper Russell was old Haileybury's leading ball winner again with 24, and Brody Finlay competed hard in the ruck. Brighton at home this week against Uni Blacks, as we mentioned. Old Trinity will take on St Bernard. So 11 straight for the Tunners. Slow start. It was a different kind of a win for them. What did Marcel Bruin make of it?
Well, exactly what you said there. Completely outplayed in the first quarter and a half footy, out-pressured, balance of the contest was poor. And then you just said the Bloods were quick and they hunted. And then in the second half, Old Brighton got the game on their terms. Scores from turnover, as we touched on, that's a big factor. They played the game in their front half, especially that last quarter. Get on top. Praise Luca McNabb, said he's been stellar. Tommy Burnell as well. 2 half forwards in Luke Travers and Ben Pryor. He said they played up the ground, just up and back all day. That modern half forward role did a really good job. And Geordie Seager worked himself into the game as well. I was watching this game. That second half was scary. That was as good as I've seen anyone play this year. They just, I didn't think they changed anything. They just got their game going, and the ball movement was as good as any level of footy you'll see. They just picked up targets, hit the 45s. And what I like, they don't bomb long. They just move through the motions. They don't have that big key forward that we'll touch on another side in a minute. They've got the 2 of them. They've just got different avenues to go, and it would be a nightmare to defend.
From a Haileybury perspective, that's twice now we've seen them play scintillating, blistering football. So we know that they have it in them. What does Guy Martin think?
Well, he said the first half was obviously very pleasing, and I don't think anyone could make any arguments against that. They showed what they're capable of doing when they play their best footy. But as the game went on, and we know what Old Brighton are capable of and the experience that they've got, they just weren't able to sustain it. They've got a young group, Old Haileybury. They just need to keep building and developing that. Over the first 3 rounds, they've shown great signs in all facets of the game, which we have already alluded to. But not just been able to do it over the entirety of the game. And Old Brighton just showed ultimately why they're the best team in the competition. They were just too strong for too long.
The final Premier Men's game of the weekend saw University Blues remain undefeated. They sit alongside the Tunners at 3 and zip after they dispatched Caulfield Grammarians after half-time at Glen Huntly Park. And as I mentioned a little earlier, it was the 2-headed blue monster causing headaches for the opposition once again. Sam Grimley and James Stewart. The Blues dominated territory early, 20 inside 50s to 6, but they sprayed their opportunities. They kicked 3-9 in the opening term to 3-1, so they only led it by 8 points. The Fields, to their credit, then pinched the lead with 2 goals in the first 7 minutes of the second term before Matt Smith's men just tidied up their entry kicks a little bit. Their delivery inside 50 was a bit better. They kicked 4 of the last 5 goals of the term and got to a 15-point lead. Then it was Grimley and Stewart. They'd been held to 1-2 and 2-2 to halftime, respectively, so the Fields had done a pretty good job. And as I said, the Blues just hadn't quite connected with them properly. In the third term, they got their territorial advantage back, did the Blues. And we know that if these 2 guys are going to get quality supply, they're going to be extremely difficult to stop. Sure enough, 20 inside 50s to 5 for that quarter. And the 2-headed monster kicked 5 goals, 3 to Grimley, 2 to Stewart. They broke the game open from just 6 disposals, which again just shows how little opportunity they actually have. 3 of them were marks on the lead, just nice hit-ups and got away from their man and nothing the defender could do. One of them came from a free kick, holding on to James Stewart, and the other one was just from a quick snap. So 7-5 to 1 point for the quarter was the result. And just like that, the margin skyrockets to 61 points at the last change. They then owned the footy in the last term. They had 138 possessions in the last quarter. To 67. They just dominated it. And it was smart. It was uncontested football. They knew they were sitting on a comfortable lead. They just controlled the game. They kicked 7 goals to 4. And the final margin of 80 points just highlights that eye-catching second half from the Blues when they put their foot down. They kicked 14-9 in the second half to 4 goals 4. And their highest score since round 14 of 2019. Sam Grimley, he finished with 11 touches, 8 marks, 5 goals. He's got 16 for the year now. James Stewart, 14 touches, 6 marks. He kicked 4. Will Furphy was outstanding, 35 touches and 4 goal assists. 19-year-old Tom Hill shone with 33 touches and 9 score involvements. Just his third senior game, and he is our VAFA Rising Star nominee for round 3. Tom Hill, 19 years of age, from Adelaide, came up through Walkerville Junior Footy Club, played 9 games for Norwood in their under-18s in the Sandful in 2024, then 19 games last year for Uni Blues in their under-19 Premier team, and polled in 9 of those 19 games. And now this year he stepped up to senior footy. All 3 games, he's averaging 22 disposals with 83% effectiveness and averaging 4 score involvements as well. So he's having an impact in his round 3 game, as I mentioned, against Caulfield. 33 touches, 13 contested, 9 score involvements, including 4 goal involvements. And that's the pathway, isn't it, Brayden? You bring a guy in at under-19 Premier level or under-19 level at your footy club. He gets a year to get his feet underneath him, and then hopefully these are the sort of guys that then push up to the next level and fit in. Not only is he fitting in, he's thriving.
And it's fantastic. I think it's an added bonus. He's playing alongside so many experienced footballers, whether it's Premier men's footballers or AFL footballers. So you probably walk a little bit taller knowing those guys are alongside you. There's probably times where you don't have to go find your own footy. You just know if you're in the right spot, they're going to find you as well. And he's excelling, and I'm looking forward to seeing his development. Like, that's only his 3rd game of senior footy. Imagine what he might be doing by game 50.
Marty Gleeson's excellent form continued. He had another 32 and 2 goals. And if they don't have enough staff power already, 2-time AFL and 2-time VFL Premiership player Taylor Duray made his VAFA debut, had 21 touches and a goal as the Blues just continue to build their experience and star power. For the Fields, Jack Elwood worked tirelessly. He had 31 touches in the end. Noah Sutherland had 30. Oscar Roberts had 30 with 10 marks and 9 rebound 50s after he returned to defence. So the Blues head home to host St Kevin's. Massive game this coming weekend. Caulfield Grammarians will dust themselves off. They'll head to Toorak Park to try and do what their 2025 Premier B Grand Final opponent, Old Trinity, did a couple of weeks ago and knock off the Zabs at home. So another really impressive performance from University Blues and Matt Smith's team.
Yeah, no, he was really pleased with the way that they were able to adjust the way that they moved the footy in terms of the tactics, negated the quick inside hands that Caulfield were able to provide early on in the game. And they had waves of ball movement going forward, which allowed them to control the tempo of the game. He said that they left a few out there in terms of the goals, 21-21 all up. So it was already a big percentage boost. It could have been even more than that. But overall, was just really happy with the overall performance. Archie Sinnott and Jack Robertson acknowledged that both of them probably played their best games for the year. And Sam Grimley as well. Could not acknowledge him. Another 5 goals, just continuing to kick him at will.
From a Fields perspective, what did Sats say after the game?
Said really competitive first half, and if not for letting themselves down with some inefficiency, they might have been closer at 15 points, and stranger things could have happened there. Which scoreboard pressure does. He just said they were overwhelmed with their quality ball movement again, and he said the 2 big fellas were hard to contain, and that comes down to that ball movement that he spoke about. He highlighted Jack Elwood, the skipper, tried all day, and he loved the opportunities that Tommy Williams and Ed Gibb, the 2 small forwards, took when there was very limited, considering the Uni Blues dominated possession.
So that sums up Premier Men's for round 3. 2 undefeated sides, Old Brighton and Uni Blues. After the break, we will talk Premier B Men's. That's next on For the Love of the Game. Are you thinking about pulling on the boots and having a kick in 2026? If so, we'd love to have you in the VAFA. Australia's largest senior footy competition has teams suited to all ages and experience, from under-19s to seniors. Log on to vafa.com.au, check out our club directory and find a club near you. Welcome back to For the Love of the Game. Jason Bennett alongside Matthew Donald and Brayden May. It's time to talk Matty's specialty. Well, we'll find out if it is when we get to the tip section a little later in the show. But allegedly, his specialty, which is Premier B Men's. Matty, where would you like to start? I mean, the one that we're all looking forward to was that Collegians Bo Morris game.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this was an early top of the table contender. The 2 teams, there were the 2 unbeaten teams coming into round 3, Collegians and Bo Morris. Bo Morris looking for 20 wins in a row. Collegians trying to get themselves back up into Prem. Hey, it was actually a really even first half. The Lions were up by just 3 points at the main break, but then they put the foot on the gas after halftime. A 10-goal-to-4 second half set up a pretty comfortable win in the end. 42 points was the final margin. 18-13, 121 to 12-7, 79. The headline act, undoubtedly, and we'll probably get to this in Ton Watch, I suspect, as well. Alexander Lukic, 8 goals he kicked, 4 in each half. A standout performance up forward. Kenny Ong, Hugh Johnson, Herschel Waters also excellent for Collegians in the midfield. Jai Florent kicked 3 goals going the other way for the Sharks. Collegians coach Geordie McKenzie, he said he was pretty happy overall with the first half. He thought they were the better team, but there was just a bit of a lapse in concentration in that second quarter, which allowed the Sharks back into the game, but said that the intensity and the pressure lifted after half time, which he was most pleased with, showing that their best stuff is right up there with the very best in the competition. For Josh Burke, he was really proud. That was the overwhelming emotion that he had after the game, particularly with what they showed in the first half. He felt that the Sharks were going to really be challenged in the contest in the middle of the ground, but that's where they stood up so well in that first half, and was really proud of the way that they fought it out and the pressure that they applied. But the cleanliness of the Lions after half-time was what told the difference in the end, but they were just too good. But Josh Burke walked away knowing that his side is able to match it with the very best when they put their best up on display.
That was quite a statement win from them, Collegians, but they might be without a couple of their big names for the next round. They've been cited by the match review officials, which is Sam Frost and Max Pinchbeck. So at the time of us recording here, we haven't got a result yet as to whether or not they're going to be challenging that at the tribunal or not, but they'll both be facing the MRO, Frost and Pinchbeck, and they would be huge outs for Collegians. Next week they look ahead, they play Old Geelong.
Yeah, that'd be a massive loss, and Sam Frost who could do damage at both ends, and Pinchbeck is one of the best players in the Premier B. Speaking of Old Geelong, there was a thriller that was played at Como Park, but it was the visitors, Williamstown, who got up with a 4-point win in the end. Terrific game.
They were doing it easily at one point. I remember looking at the scores, and Willie were like four or five goals up, weren't they?
Yeah, they
Geelong stormed home.
They had a bit of a buffer. They were up by 16 points. They'd have been close to 16 points at three-quarter time, and the OGs booted 3 goals to 1 in the final term. There was a bit of a breeze, admittedly, that was favouring the hosts in that final stanza, but Williamstown managed to hold on for the final 6 minutes of the game. And having spoke with Coach Con Zogler, the Seawise, he said he was just happy to get the win in the end. Pretty relieved. Big weekend for Con, both Williamstown and Richmond getting up on the Saturday. He was pretty happy about that. But he said, as far as the Seawise were concerned, he couldn't speak highly enough of the back 6. Was really proud of the way that they stood up. And the other thing that he mentioned as well was that in close games last year, Seawise went 1-4.
Yeah, right.
And one of the main focuses over the summer was that they wanted to find a way to win those close ones,
especially in such a close competition. Like
yes.
if you make that 4-1, they just about finish top.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was ultimately the difference last year. It was such a tight finals race. So that was sort of one of the things that they really wanted to focus on. And their first time of asking this time around in 2026, they've got one on the board. So they'll be really happy with that one. Coach Nick Dixon, though, he said it was a tale of two halves, that they really outnumbered. They really got outnumbered in the first half, and that's why Williamstown were able to pick up the big lead. They made a bit of a comeback in the second half, but they were left with too much to do in the end. But the work rate had improved in the second half, and they were able to get from contest to contest better and create more opportunities for their forwards going inside 50. So definitely positives to take away from it, but yeah, just left themselves with too much to climb after half time.
I feel like Premier B at the moment is going to take the longest to work out the pecking order. And there's teams that are winning one week, losing the next, winning one week, losing that. We haven't quite settled into a rhythm yet of where these teams sit. And a great example of that is Ajax and Old Melburnians.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Ajax, I mean, we know that the great story. They finished 4th in Premier C last year. They took the scenic route to get to the grand final. They're 2-1 now after round 3. I don't think many would have expected this. They knocked off Melburnians here at Elstonwick Park by 17 points. They started really strongly. They kicked 3 goals to 1 in the opening term, and they just kept OMs at arm's length for the rest of the game. It was a really professional performance, all things considered. Lockie Buzzard was really happy with the fact that it took the entire 22 to get the job done in order to secure the victory. So we had great contribution across the board in what was a tough game. He noted that James Byrne of Old Melbourne is a really good coach and gave credit to OMs for a great game of footy, but he was really proud of the group and what they were able to produce in what were blustery conditions here at Elstonwick Park. Meanwhile, for James Byrne, he said that the team didn't make the most of its opportunities in the end, but he still remains optimistic about what the OMs can achieve in 2026. He noted the fact that the turnovers were what hurt them the most. They had the game in control at times, but they weren't able to make the most of it, and turnovers cost them in the end, and the Jackers were able to capitalise on that. He did acknowledge, though, with youth comes fluctuation as far as James is concerned, the Old Melburnians. He said, we've been in every game, and the 2 games that they have lost, they were both very winnable. So there's a lot of upside still and a lot to be excited about from the OM's point of view.
I think that's a pretty common theme because the games are generally so close in Premier B at the moment. A lot of young teams still sort of finding their way and working out where, as we say, they sit in the pecking order. two teams that probably have surprised us for the wrong reasons, Old Ivanhoe and Old Camberwell. You would both expect that they were on the rise trajectory-wise and potentially heading for Premier Men's, but they both sort of stumbled out of the gate. They met on the weekend at Charlesworth Park.
They did, and a really tight first half affair as well. Again, Old Camberwell leading by just 3 points at the main break. It was a bit of a low-scoring, inaccurate type affair, 4-9 to 3-8. But then the third term was when the Wellers really made the most of it. They kicked 6 goals to 1. They opened up a 34-point lead at the final change. And Old Ivanhoe, well, they were able to fight back in the end. They closed the gap to 14 points at the final siren, but in the end, there was just too big a lead for last year's minor premiers to overhaul. The headline act, though, for the Wells, Liam Thomas, he kicked a game-high 5 goals, and he was outstanding up forward there for Old Camberwell. And that's certainly that's what Neil Connor would have been most pleased with, was that third term where they were really able to make their move in the premiership quarter. As I said, 6 goals to 1. For Xavier Naish, he said that the boys fought hard and it was a genuinely good contest, and he felt that the team were able to take advantage of the chances and key moments in that first half to just keep themselves in the game. But Camberwell put the foot down in the third term, and both coaches acknowledged that. That's probably ultimately the difference in the end.
And the final game of the weekend, Old Carey and De La Salle at Carey.
Yeah, this was a good performance here by Old Carey, and they moved themselves into the top 4. Very early days, though. I don't know when you two like to start looking at the ladder, but
I'd say at least a month generally.
Okay.
But after a month, Brayden, what do you think? I generally start to look at form lines beyond a month, because by then you've had enough of a sample size of teams playing other teams who have played other teams who have played other, and you can start to draw a little bit of a thread through who sits where, but it takes at least a month for mine.
Yeah, I think so. And again, the games are so close. I think on the weekend it was quite windy across Melbourne as well. So these type of results can just be thrown out of proportion. I think that we touched on, there was a couple of quarters where teams kick a lot of goals and the other team bounced back as well. So yeah, I think Collegians are still number 1 for me at the moment. They look like the far superior team. Old Kerry appear to be finding some form that they'll be there at the pointy end. But that game between Old Camberwell and Old Ivanhoe, like we spoke last week, the loser of that was a long way behind the 8 ball already. But again, I think there is going to be some disappointed sides this year that miss finals, and I reckon we're going to get down to percentage type areas of missing out.
What were the reactions at the Carey-De-La game?
Well, Luke Giles was really happy with the performance in the end. He said, we're very alive to the fact that the club that they're up against, De-La, didn't do a whole heap wrong in Premier last season. So he felt like it was their biggest challenge in the last 3 years, was what he said to me. That's how highly he rated this game at the weekend, and was just so proud of what the club were able to achieve. He thought it was a great day for the club. First home game of the year as well, so was just really happy with the whole box and dice as far as the Panthers was concerned. For Nick Hyland, it was pretty much the inverse, though. He conceded that De La were outplayed in pretty much every facet of the game and was very disappointed overall. Paid credit to Luke Giles and the Panthers. They were just too good, the dominance all over the ground. But for Nick Hyland and his team, there'll be a lot to work on during the week.
So 3 weeks into Prem B, we have 1 undefeated team, Collegians. We have 1 winless team at the bottom, Old Ivanhoe, and then everybody else in between. We've got Beaumaris, Old Carey, and Ajax and Williamstown, all on 8 points. And then De La Salle, Old Melburnians, Old Geelong, and Old Camberwell all on 4 points. As I mentioned, Old Ivanhoe yet to salute. As we look ahead quickly to round 4, Old Camberwell will take on Old Melburnians. Old Geelong versus Collegians at Como Park is going to be one to watch. Old Ivanhoe and Old Carey, as we mentioned, things are starting to get a little bit urgent for Old Ivanhoe. They'd love to claim a scalp or two and just get their season up and going. De La Salle and Ajax will be an interesting game at Waverley Oval. And Williamstown CYs will host Beaumaris at Fearon Reserve. That is Premier Men's. Coming up next on For the Love of the Game, Premier C. And we'll catch up with our special guest, Jack Dalton, FITZROY coach. That's next.
The VAFA Big V Luncheon returns in 2026 on June 5 at the RACV City Club. A celebration of community, tradition and the very best of Big V representative football. Join the 2026 squads, past greats and supporters as we honour the game, including the induction of 3 Big V champions, recognised for their outstanding contribution to the mighty Big V. And don't miss the proud moment for the future as the 2026 senior Big V men's and women's teams are officially presented with their Guernseys. It's history, pride and passion all in one room. Tickets available now at vafa.com.au.
Welcome back to For the Love of the Game. It's time to talk Premier C men's, and we've got a couple of teams that have kicked out in front. They're 3 and zip, and one of them is FITZROY, and joining us is FITZROY coach Jack Dalton. Jack, congratulations on the start to the season. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Jace. Appreciate it. It's been a really positive first 3 rounds. So, yeah, very exciting at the moment.
So we know Fitzroy have done the double drop 2 years ago in Premier Men's, last year in Premier B, this year down to Premier C again, where you were 4 or 5 years ago. How important has it been to get 3 wins on the board early, to just get that winning feeling and excitement around the place again?
Yeah, really, really important. We've learned a lot of lessons over the last 2 years as a playing group and a coaching group. And, one of our main focuses, really only having won, 3 games last year, was to really instruct and coach and teach the boys on what it takes to win again. So that's been a really, really big focus, and how exciting it is, and how much fun it is to win games of football. So it's been a really, really big focus over pre-season, and the way we train, with our actions and our values that we have. So it's been great. It's been great to be able to sing the song, 3 weeks in a row, and that's our seniors, reserves, and our thirds boys. So it's been a really, really positive start.
That's a brilliant start. Hey, tell us a little bit about your background and your history with Fitzroy to get everyone up to speed as to what this footy club means to you.
Yeah, it means a lot. The football club has done so much for me. I moved over as an 18-year-old, and won a premiership in the under-19s in my first year, and then proceeded to play the next 13 years at the football club. So it's given so much to me. I was lucky enough then to be able to be invited to stay around and I guess join the coaching ranks for the last 3 years. The first year under Luke Marnie, and then the last 2 years under Travis Ronaldson. So it means a hell of a lot. There's a great history. It's always been a fantastic culture, from the supporters to the volunteers to the community in general. It's a pretty special place to be able to play and be involved in. So it was a great opportunity, and something that I've absolutely haven't taken for granted, and that I'm really proud and privileged to be able to be leading the football club.
Jack, Matthew Donald here. Congratulations on the start to the season. It's been tremendous for Fitzroy. Curious about your own personal transition from playing to coaching and what that's been like for you. Was coaching everything you'd expected it would be, or have there been a few surprises that have been thrown up along the way?
Yeah, thanks, Matty. Look, it wasn't actually something. So when I finished all the way back in 2022, I wasn't really on the radar. I'm a teacher first and foremost, so I guess there's a fair bit of crossover between teaching, I think, and coaching. And I was very lucky that Luke Marnie at the time offered me a position to stay around and coach the forward line, which I was at first a little bit torn between whether or not to stay on board. But as I mentioned just previously, I wanted to give back to the footy club, and then I started to just fall in love with it. I really invested a fair bit of time into the line coaching, tried to absorb and learn as much as I could off those around me, and had some great mentors in that space. And yeah, it's just grown over the last 3 years. And then obviously when the opportunity popped up at the end of last year when the vacancy appeared, I thought, why not throw my hat in the ring? I've got great relationships at the footy club, and as I said, it's a real honour. So jumped at it. I think initially the October, November, December period last year, it was a little bit overwhelming at times. I think it was finding that balance between work and footy, and all of the different expectations that are on you. But I was able to get away over the January break and really refresh and come back with a plan in place that I think has started to work really well. So very excited and loving it at the moment. It's a really fun place to be around.
Jack, it's Brayden here. You've spoken about the relationships you've had. Can you just give us a little bit of an insight into how you've went into that in pre-season to bring Fitzroy people back, the Fitzroy Junior Football Club that we've spoken about previously as well, and just how important that connection is just for the growth and the sustainability of your football club?
Yeah, relationships is everything to me. It's a value I uphold. That's extremely important. It's your relationships, your environment, your culture. I think if you can't get those things right, you're not going to have success, I guess, anywhere in life. So I think I'm lucky in the space that I've already got some really well-established relationships with the playing group and the current coaching group at the football club. So I really wanted to invest in that and bring a one club mentality around the group. So that was the first kind of goal that I wanted to tick off. And when you've got those really authentic relationships, really honest and trust in those relationships, it can go both ways. You can really challenge the group. You can get the group to try new things. Which has been brilliant in that space. But yeah, I think on top of that as well that I think the thing I had to really worry about first was some of the current boys that I actually played with as well. So finding that balance between authentic relationships and outside of footy, and then as a coach now as well, which I've really worked on. It's going from strength to strength, which is great.
On field, tell us about your game. Why you're 3 and zip? What's been the keys to your success, and what does it look like when it's on your terms? What style of footy are you playing in Prem C this year, Jack?
Yeah, so I love the data side of things. So that's something I've really invested in heavily over the last few years, and the data and the numbers tell us that we've been a really, really good defensive team over the last couple of years. With defending the ball, and our pressure game has been fantastic. So I've really looked at this pre-season, investing in a couple of areas of growth as a football club, and that's first and foremost around the contest game and our exit method from stoppage. So I coached the midfield group last year, and we started to evolve the way we played in that space, moving away from more of a surge dump kick mentality of midfield to more of an exit from in to out by hand. So that started to evolve last year, and we've really tried to take that to another level this year from a contest point of view. And then our evolution as a football club is through our ball movement. So we've focused heavily on our ball movement and our gears that we've structured and trained to the nth degree, and we're starting to really see that come to the floor. And then our last kind of pillar that we've looked at is our turnover game. So they're our 4 pillars: defense first and foremost, contests, ball movement, and turnover game. So they'll continue to evolve throughout the year, but we've started to see real snippets of those over the first 3 rounds. And I think once it starts, all of those 4 click together, we're going to be a pretty hard team to play against.
Premier C looks like it's going to be pretty competitive this year. There's FITZROY and Mazenod undefeated, 3 and zip. Then Parkdale, St Bede's, Mentone, and Hampton Rovers 1 game behind at 2 and 1. You play one of those teams this week, St Bede's, Mentone Tigers. What are you expecting?
Yeah, we had a look as a coaching group at their tape last night, just for their first couple of rounds. They're a team that looks to move the ball really quickly, especially from defence and between the arcs. So we're going to have to be really switched on, from that mindset point of view, and not allow them to transition the ball at rapid speed. So that's going to be a real focus for us. But as I mentioned just before, the contest is something that we put a lot of effort and time into. So trying to control that, win first possession, trap the footy in our front half, and then play our defensive game with our press from there. So, I think initially, we've put a lot of focus on just ourselves as a group and focusing really inwards around what we can do to improve and some of the things that we're doing really well at the moment. And as the season evolves and we get more data on our opposition, we'll start to dive into them a little bit deeper as well. But yeah, all about us at the moment, with little snippets just about strengths of other teams as well.
It's going to be a revealing game this weekend. FITZROY versus St Bede's Mentone Tigers down at Mentone Reserve. Jack, thanks so much for your time. Well done on the start, and best of luck for the road ahead.
Appreciate it. Thanks heaps, gents. Great to chat.
Jack Dalton joining us there, FITZROY coach. So let's check out the rest of our scores from Prem C across the weekend. Brayden, will start with the Roys, who had another fantastic win.
Yeah, really convincing result, and they're putting scores on the scoreboard. 18-14, 122. Got the better of Hampton Rovers, 11-7, 73. So obviously both sides went into the weekend undefeated with that game. Speaking of unbeaten sides up, Mazenod, Andrew Pickering, he's got them flying. 9-20, 74 to 8-14, 62 against Peg. It's a really hard forward game, according to Andrew when I spoke to him this morning. So another exciting clash. I'm looking forward to see how Mazenod go. One of the big surprise packets so
They'll
far.
be really flying if they can kick straight.
Yeah,
9-20, 74.
No, that makes a big difference. Yeah, certainly there were a couple of games where a lot of behinds were scored on the weekend, but if they can fix out the goal kicking, make a big difference.
Down the bottom of the ladder, a couple of really important, one of those 8-point games we talk about, GLEN EIRA, McKINNON and Ormond.
Yeah, the Gryphons, 14-20. 104 to 13, 91, a really high scoring game. I think that's what I'm loving just across the VAFA in general at the moment. There's a lot of free flowing footy that's exciting. Speaking of free flowing attacking footy, Parkdale Vultures, we've spoken about Tunwatch and Mitch Brown before, 32-14, 206 to 25-17 against Old Peninsula. A really tough day for the Pirates, but it just shows probably the gap we're experiencing between the top and bottom of the ladder at the moment. And the final result that probably proved that as well was St Bede's Mentone, 16-23, 119 to 7-3, 45 Marsland.
Let's have a look at the ladder for Premier C. As we mentioned with Jack, 3 and zip. FITZROY 3 and zip. Mazenod 3 and zip at the top of the table. Then we've got 3 teams sitting on 2 wins. Parkdale Vultures, St Bede's Mentone Tigers and Hampton Rovers all sitting on 8 points. Then we've got 3 teams on 1 win. Pegs, the Gryphons, Marcelin, and then 2 teams yet to score a win. It's the 2 teams that have been elevated from Division 1 last year, Ormond and Old Peninsula, which I think, Brayden, just reinforces that gap. That big gap between Division 1 and Prem C might be the biggest gap in the comp.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And they actually face each other this weekend. So a crucial opportunity to get 4 points on the board at EE Gun Reserve for the Monders and Pirates. So that's a huge clash. But yeah, the gap is starting to open. I think we saw this last year. The top 4 or 5 probably broke away. Then there was that next bunch in 6 and 7. Then there was a bit of 3-way race to avoid the drop.
And the thing is, for Ormond and Old Peninsula, who were both outstanding last year, Maddie, is that it does take a little bit of time to adapt to that next level. But the key is they've got 3 teams or 4 teams either on the same amount of points or 1 game ahead of them. So at the end of the year, you may only need to win 4 or 5 games. So even if the top teams are belting you, like Old Peninsula copped on the weekend, in a way that almost doesn't matter. You just need to beat those other teams around you and make sure you're ahead of 2 of them and you stay up.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. I mean, it's only round 3. It's a long, long season, and there's still plenty of games to go. And they'll be playing a vast majority of those teams at least once, maybe even twice before the season is done. So still plenty of opportunity for all of those teams to pick up those 4 or 5 wins necessary to avoid the drop. So while it's probably not been the ideal start for them, still plenty of time to make up the ground.
And that's the beauty of relegation and promotion, Brayden, is that in a way, Old Peninsula aren't playing against Parkdale right now. Like on the weekend, they got beaten by 30 goals by them, but that's not really their opponent for the year, is it? Their opponent for the year is the other teams that are going to be around them in that bottom half of the ladder. They're the ones that you've got to take care of. So as weird as that might sound, you can wash the 189-point loss to Parkdale from an overall perspective because Parkdale aren't really your opponent.
Yeah, exactly right. I think it just comes down to having realistic expectations and understand. I think if we look on paper, Parkdale's probably got a list of his Premier B, even top half of Premier B quality as well. So it does come down to that. And the Pirates have come up. They've brought in some younger guys as well that probably haven't quite played at this level of footy. They've got guys out of the school. So again, they probably want to target 4 or 5 wins, which is probably the set amount that you would need to avoid the drop.
Looking ahead to round 4, Hampton and Pegs, GLEN EIRA, Old McKINNON and Mazenod. That massive game between St Bede's Mentone Tigers and FITZROY will be a ripper. The Ormond Old Peninsula one to watch as well. Both those teams looking for their first win. And Marcelin will take on the Parkdale Vultures, which will also be an interesting game. That wraps up Premier Footy for the men. After the break, we will talk men's divisional. That's next on For the Love of the Game. The VAFA Rising Star Award recognises the competition's most talented young players. Each week, the VAFA Rising Star Committee receives nominations for 1 male and 1 female player aged 20 years or under who played no more than 7 senior games before this season. Our overall season winners will be declared the VAFA Rising Stars for 2026. So if your club has a young gun making their mark, nominate them now at media@vafa.com.au. Welcome back to For the Love of the Game. And hey, if you haven't realised, we're also a vodcast now. So you can watch us on YouTube and see our beautiful smiling faces, see just how incredibly strikingly handsome these 2 gentlemen are, Brayden May and Matthew Donald. Available as a podcast, as always, on all the normal platforms, plus as a vodcast on the VAFA HQ YouTube channel. So go to YouTube, VAFA HQ, and you can watch us as well as listen to us For the Love of the Game each and every week. Let's talk men's divisional footy now. We're going to start with Division 1 men's. And round 3 results. Parkside 12-15-87 continued their successful start to the year over Q 8-9-57. Parkside by 30 points. Massive win for Oakley. 28-19-187 defeated Old Yarra Cobras 3-7-25. 162-point win for the Crushers. Huge win also for Preston Bull Ants, who have started the season in fine style. 23-29-167 defeated UHSVU 6-6-42. 125-point win to the Bull Ants. A tight one between St Mary's Salesian and Brunswick at GLEN Oval. St Mary's Salesian 6-9-45 defeated Brunswick 6-6-42. A 3-point game there. And then the final game of Division 1 for the weekend. Great win for Paran. 19-17-131 defeated Monash Blues 7-5-47. Paran by 84 points at Toorak Park. Wonderful result for the 2 Blues. So Division 1 men's, 3 teams undefeated, which is unusual so far this season. It might be the first division I think we've talked about that's had 3 undefeated teams. Parkside, Preston Bull Ants, St Mary's Salesian all sitting on 12 points. Oakley, Paran sitting on 8. and then one UHSVU on 1 win with 4 points. A tie, 2 points Brunswick and Monash Blues, and then the two sides yet to rack up any points, Kew and Old Yarra Cobras. That's Division 1 men's, and well, just quickly, Parkside and Preston, as we mentioned, Brayden. Top two. First versus second coming up this week. That's going to be a beauty.
Yeah, there's some fixtures that have really caught my eye leading into this weekend. It's going to be very interesting. I think you'd maybe have Parkside just slightly ahead based on having played Premier C footy last year, and they've got some exciting talents. But the Bullants are just they're quietly going about their business. They've added some kids. They've come out of the development. Tom Hill's a great coach, a great leader. Just straightens them up on the footy field. Can play deep forward, can get up high up the ground as well. So it's really exciting for the Bullants.
You're a divisional guru. Any other stories out of Division 1 men's that sort of caught your eye over the first 3 weeks? Who do you sort of think the big stories are? Obviously, as we say, Parkside and Preston have set the early pace along with St Mary's Salesian. Anything else surprising you?
Well, I think St Mary's Salesian deserve a heap of credit. You come up to win three from three against sides that they probably would expect themselves to challenge, sides that were in that middle part of the ladder, lower part of the ladder that weren't relegated last season. But huge test this weekend against the Q side that you just mentioned. Hasn't won a game. They played in a prelim final last year, and they really got going in the second half of the season. So let's see what they've got. If they pick up a win here, we might be talking to this side as one of the biggest surprise packets in the competition.
Matty, let's talk Division 2 men's. Let's run through the scores there, and then we'll get Brayden's thoughts on D2.
No, let's do that. And if goals are your thing, Division 2 was the place to be because there were a couple of fair dinkum shootouts on the weekend, which we don't get too often, but it's always a good thing to see. We'll start with MHSOB against Aquinas. MHSOB getting the win 21-10, 136 to 15-11, 101. So that's a proper shooter. MHSOB 35-point win there. Canterbury against Elsonwick. Canterbury getting the win here at Elsonwick Park 16-17, 113 to 10-17, 77. South Melbourne over North Brunswick 11-13, 79. South Melbourne, North Brunswick 5-12, 42. Powerhouse too good for Terry Penola 13-15, 93 to 7-9, 51. And the other shootout was Whitefriars getting the job done against West Brunswick 16-10, 106 to 13, 16, 94.
The ladder in Division 2 has opened up a little bit too, a little bit like Division 1. Three undefeateds and 3 winless.
Yes, that's it. And it's Powerhouse, Canterbury and Whitefriars who make up the top 3, separated only by percentage at this stage. And then you've got Elsonwick and South Melbourne who round out the top 5 in 4th and 5th with 2 wins to their name. MHSOB and then West Brunswick, your 6th and 7th on the ladder. And then Aquinas, Three Penola and North Brunswick, each looking for their first wins in 2026 still.
What have you made of D2 the first 3 weeks?
Yeah, a few surprises, to be honest. I wouldn't have probably had Derry winless after the first 3 games coming down. You obviously coming from a higher level, but the top of the ladder is what's exciting me. Like Powerhouse undefeated. We spoke to Nick Cox for our preview. They're absolutely flying.
They've come up from the lower levels and just gone bang.
Yeah, they've gone well, but at the moment I've got Canterbury as the flag favourites after the weekend. There, Steve Brown's a ripping coach, and what I love, they've got a nice mix of youth and experience. They've had a few guys pop up. Mitch Sasbo, someone's kicking goals. They didn't have as much access as they would have to have had him last year. Yeah, everyone is just going really well. But I think what we need to talk about with the Melbourne High School Old Boys game, there's a great video going around on the VAFA social.
What a goal.
What a goal. I want to see the young fella try it again. He's only 17. Like, if Tony Popovich and the Socceroos are watching, he might be on the plane to the World Cup. The bend on that ball was ridiculous.
Wonderful soccer goal from the left forward pocket. If you haven't seen it, check out the VAFA HQ socials. It's an absolute ripper. Let's talk Division 3 men's. Run through the scores, get Brayden's thoughts. It was Wattle Park, big winners, 11-17, 83 over Richmond Central, 3-9-27. And in the other game, Latrobe Uni, 14-7, 91. Good kickings, good football over Albert Park, 8-7, 55 by 36 points. And Hawthorn had the bye. So in this 5-team competition, we've got Wattle Park undefeated on 2 wins. You've got Richmond Central at 2-1. The Hawks at 1-1. Latrobe at 1-1. And Albert Park, 0-3. So Wattle Park, obviously the standout with a percentage of 802. But beyond that, you look at the next bunch, it's pretty even.
Yeah, it's shaping up to be very even. I think Wattle Park are the team to beat. Personally, I think something would have to go very wrong for them to not probably get at least promotion this year. They're buoyed by what happened, and they're really motivated by the way last season ended. There were some super honest conversations in pre-seasons. Like, their talent is good enough to probably beat Division 2 sides at the moment. But one guy I want to shout out was Brendan Gretsch at Latrobe University. So just looking through results, he's played 2 games this year, named the best both times. But what I love about it is he spent most of last season in the reserves. So he's come in with his opportunity this season. He's holding down a place in the Eagles lineup.
And the other thing that Wattle Park's going in their favour is Sench is playing in their thirds team for the Animals, just running around dominating our under-19 celebrity tipster. Sench, our social media guru here at VAFA HQ, just getting it done for the animals week after week. So, I mean, that's just lifted the entire club.
How long do we give it before he starts putting his own highlights on the VAFA socials?
Well, you know, he's a very humble man, but I'd give it about 10 to 15 minutes.
What I love about Sench's ability, I said this to him off air last week, he does what most AFL footballers can't do these days. Kicks on both sides of his body.
Yeah, he's a talent, there's no doubt about it. And he'll be absolutely hating the fact that we're talking about him on For the Love of the Game. That is men's divisional footy done for round 3. Next, we're going to talk VAFA women's competition. There's plenty to talk about. That's next on For the Love of the Game.
Keep up to date with everything that's happening around the VAFA by subscribing to our socials. We're on Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook and LinkedIn. Has someone just taken a screamer or kicked goal of the year? Send us your best and we might share them around the league. Join in the fun with all the best pics, videos, stories and reels from around the competition. They're all on VAFA socials. Search VAFA and VAFA Women's on your favourite platforms.
Welcome back to For the Love of the Game. Time now to talk VAFA women's competition. We're going to start with William Buck Premier Women's and run through our results from round 3. First up, Old Geelong, 11-15-81. Great win for the Ogs over Williamstown, 3 straight 18. St Kevin's in a thriller over Westbourne. Westbourne almost with the upset win. It was St Kevin's 3-4-22, defeating Westbourne 3-2-20 by 2 points. Big win for Old Scotch, 11-11-77, defeated Q 3-2-20 by 57 points. Caulfield Grammarians on their merry way, 23-point winners over West Brunswick, 5-11-41, defeated West Brunswick 2-6-18. And a tight one at Brunswick Street, Old Brighton, 6-3-39, knocking off Fitzroy 4-6-30. Great result for the Tunners there. So 3 weeks in, we'll check out the league ladder. Fitzroy, that's still top of the table at 2-1. So no undefeated teams left in William Buck Premier Women's now, just 3 weeks in, which just shows, gentlemen, how incredibly even it is. We've got 2 teams yet to win a game in Westbourne and Willie CYMS, and no one undefeated.
Well, that's exactly what you want in a competition, and we've sort of touched on this a couple of times already. That it's good that you've got a league where you're not quite sure which way it's going to fall. Makes it tough to tip, but for the neutrals, it's great.
Well, it's going to be tough to tip because guess what? West Brunswick at the moment sits 7th, and they're equal top. So the top 7 teams have all won 2 games and are all at two wins. Fitzroy, Old Scotch, Old Geelong, Caulfield, Kew, St Kevin's and West Brunswick all on 8 points. So 7 of your 10 teams have got 2 wins.
It's really exciting, especially when you include Old Brighton, who picked up their first win of the
so they're
season.
on 4, and then the 2 teams we mentioned that haven't won one.
Especially last week. Last week we had our guest on, and
Lauren Atkinson.
And Fitzroy with a form team. We were talking about them.
We've cursed her.
Oh, yeah.
Jack Dalton will be worried now listening to this.
So, yeah, it's really exciting. But it just goes to show, like, we've had the powerhouse clubs, but that gap between the best and the teams that have come up, the newer teams, it's closing, which is really
definitely
exciting, and it's going to make more people want to come and play VAFA footy.
We think about it, Matty, the evolution of William Buck Premier Women's, it's going in the direction it needed to go in. St Kevin's won those 3 flags. They were the clear standout, and they set the benchmark, and they were perfect because everyone else has had to rise to catch and go past St Kevin's. They set the benchmark, as I mentioned. Everyone else has then gone out after them. Old Scotch went out after them and have done a wonderful job over the last couple of years. Caulfield last year jumped over the top of them as well. So we've gone from having one dominant team to 2 teams and a battle. Last year it was 3 teams. And now, as we can see, it's opening up well beyond the top 4.
Yeah, I mean, and that was evidenced by the fact that last year's finals campaign was unbelievably close. All the finals, it was just
4 games by 23 points or something, I think it was.
Something outrageous. No, it was a really even top 4. And now we've got very early days, but we've got a very even top 7. In fact, you could argue we've got a very even top 8 because there's 1 game separating 1st and 8th. And how many competitions would you get that in? And this is a great thing for the league. It's a great thing for women's footy as well that we've got such an even competition.
We will go through our tips later in the show. One thing it's not great for is tipping.
No, it's not.
Horrific for the tipsters, and our tipping segment will confirm that for you a little later on in the show. And another great result for the Tunners is this week's VAFA Rising Star Women's nominee, Georgia Zagowski from Old Brighton. She's 18 years of age, come up through the Ajax junior system, the East Brighton Vampires and the Sandy Dragons. She played 15 games in the Talent League last year for the Dragons, polled in 8 of those, made her VAFA debut on the weekend in Premier Women's Seniors and was best on the ground against the top team, Fitzroy, as the Tunners won their first ever Premier Women's game, led the team to an upset win. That is a pretty good debut by any standards.
No, I can't ask for a much better start than that. That's awesome stuff.
Well done to Georgia Zagowski, our VAFA Rising Star Women's nominee for round 3. Let's talk Premier B women's now. MEL KUYS, the coach of GLEN EIRA, Old McKINNON. They came up having won 35 of their last 36 games over the last 2 years, including a perfect season last year to go back-to-back premiers. They've jumped up to Premier B women's this year. Mel joins us. Mel, thanks for your time.
That's right. Thanks for having me.
Here with Matthew, Donald and Brayden May. And congratulations on your first win in Premier B over the weekend. A 25-point win over Parkside.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a good win. It was good to see the girls celebrate and, yeah, get our first ever win in Prem B for GLEN EIRA.
Talking to you over the summer, obviously we knew that going for a hat-trick of premierships, you were going to have to step up a division. It was going to be an extra challenge, but you were ready to embrace that. How have the first 3 weeks of the season been? Having to deal with a different level of competition and not being able to sing the song every week?
Yeah, it's been definitely a little bit of an adjustment, just mentally, I think, for myself and the playing group. Obviously, singing the song each week for the last 2 years, except for one game. It's weird. You almost get used to it, which is such a terrible thing to do in sport, but it's just something that I guess your mind does do. So to have the first 2 weeks not come in and sing the song and you know, have to really work hard on several things to try and get the girls mentally prepared for round 3, knowing that we were probably not as competitive as we would have liked in rounds 1 and 2. And yeah, Port Chargers and old Melburnians really gave us a little bit of an awakening as to what Prem B is going to look like.
Matthew, Donald here. Just curious, what are some of the changes with the step up into Premier B that you just alluded to? What are some of those key changes that you've noticed from last season to this?
Yeah, just the speed of the game's quicker, decision making of the opposition's better, and just the awareness of when to go fast and hold shape. We're used to teams collapsing and us winning a lot of the contests, so I felt as if, yeah, the last 2 weeks prior, yeah, we were really losing a lot of the contests through the middle, which really made us struggle to dictate play on the outside.
I imagine, was there a bit more impetus to win this week, considering you had a special player to the club celebrate their 200th game in Cecilia McIntosh?
Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely a driver. Celebrating Cecilia McIntosh's 200th, it's a massive milestone, and we really reflected on that throughout the week and how hard that is to do in women's footy, considering, you know, 15, 20 years ago, the fixture, you'd get 10 to 12 games in a year. So to tick off 200 is a huge effort, and it definitely was something that we really wanted to do for her.
You and Cecilia have been, you know, mainstays of women's footy for such a long time, you know, back to pre-AFLW days, Mel, and I know you and I have spoken about legacy a little bit over the journey. Certainly Seabomb's legacy has been firmly established, as has yours. Have you spoken to your girls about legacy this year? Because you've won back-to-back flags. The idea of winning 3 in a row and making it a premiership hat-trick is something that's phenomenal. Even if you don't win the premiership, you are already building a wonderful legacy for the Gryphons and this women's program, aren't you?
Yeah, it's definitely, definitely I'm proud, and I think the club is proud as to where we've got to so far with the women's program in the last few years. So obviously we'd love to go a hat trick, and yeah, we have definitely spoken about that it would be in history if we were to do it. We spoke about it at our pre-season camp in March. Yeah, obviously something we'd love to do, but I think just at the end of the day, just having 2 teams in the women's side now at the Gryphs and being in Prem B and competing, and I feel like we'll compete pretty well throughout the year. I think that's a huge tick in itself.
One of the challenges for every coach in promotion relegation system is when you get promoted, as you guys have, you might find that the win-loss results aren't as favourable as they have been previously, but you as a coach know your team is actually getting better. Is that a challenge for you to make sure that the players also appreciate that and understand that? Because it's easy to sort of come off and go, oh, we lost again. Geez, we're not as good as we used to be. But in reality, you might actually be better than you used to be. It's just the standard you're playing at's higher.
Yeah, it's definitely it's obviously nothing that I've really had to do until now. I don't struggle with it, but I do feel like the playing group does, because they're so competitive, and I guess as a player, remembering when I was playing, you do go off wins and losses more so than, getting better and looking at the stats that way. So yeah, it's definitely something that I've had to readjust to in terms of coaching the girls and really getting into, that we are getting better and we're just coming up against much stronger teams that have got probably more experience than us.
You mentioned, Mel, the group that you've had over the previous 2 years. Always curious, and I always get asked this question when it comes to a team that's been as dominant as yours. What is it about this group that makes it so special?
I think there's a real good group of 10 to 12 players that are just super passionate about football and just love and breathe, they just love footy. They live and breathe it. They watch it on the weekend. They really enjoy it, and they just want to get better and better. And they've played footy for several years, and probably even played juniors as well. So this group, it's a very, very different group to any group I've ever actually even been a part of. It's very competitive, very united, and always pushing to be better. And it probably makes my job a lot easier, knowing that I've got 10, 15 players that are striving for success and to get better.
Another challenge comes this week. You take on top of the table Beau Morris. What are you expecting?
Yeah, obviously it's going to be tough. Hearing from other coaches in the same competition, they're saying that they're going to be the benchmark, and they're stacked. So it's one of those things that I can't change their lists. I can't change what they bring on the park, but I can change what we do and what our mindset is coming Saturday and how we play our brand of footy. So we're not going to shy away from how we play, even if things aren't going our way from time to time. We're going to continue to develop, get better, and play our game style and hopefully improve as the weeks go by. Obviously, Beau Morris are a very, very strong side, and there's going to be obviously some things that might not go our way on Saturday, but as long as we walk away knowing that we competed hard and played at least 3/4 of footy, I'll be happy.
Mel, thanks for your time as always. You're so generous with it, with VAFA Media. We appreciate it. Best of luck for the road ahead, and congratulations on everything you've achieved so far with the Gryphons. It's been a wonderful transformation.
No worries. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Always great to catch up with Mel Kuys, and wonderful to see what they're doing there with the Gryphons. They've elevated that program, and there's a flag feature actually on the VAFA website if you want to go back and learn a little bit more about Mel and what they've done as a unit over the last couple of years and how they've had so much success. And so much of it has been cultural. She mentioned, Brayden, that after the grand final last year, after they won that second premiership, came back to the club, the men's players were there, everybody was there. It was a real one club vibe, and she made the note that 15 years ago when she won a flag in the early days of sort of women's footy of her career, that would never have happened. It would have just been, oh, the girls won that flag, they can go off and celebrate on their own. But this one was celebrated genuinely as an entire club, that they won a flag. Whether it was the men or the women, didn't matter. They won a flag.
Yeah, and that's how you create successful footy clubs now. It's an environment where people want to be. There's no point having mercenaries or people that just are there just to have a kick and then go home. It's an outlet. It's where we enjoy playing footy. It's where you have your frustrations at work and you go on a Tuesday, Thursday, or whatever night you train, or Saturday and Sunday, you have a kick, you have a laugh with your fellow local players. And when you come together, I think there's nothing better than winning with people that you're close with. There's a difference between winning as a team, but then winning as a champion team that is built together.
Yep. And without getting too deep about it, Maddie, the world has changed in terms of back when I was young, you'd meet people by going out to pubs and nightclubs and all that sort of way. It had to be that way. These days, so much of your interaction is social media. Like you can, you don't necessarily have that same one-to-one, face-to-face, hands-on contact that you had. So somewhere like a footy club, for people that are maybe feeling a little bit isolated and a little bit alone, you walk into a footy club, you've immediately made a whole bunch of new friends, an entire new circle of friends. They've got friends, you've become friends with them. They've got friends, and so it goes.
No, the footy clubs, especially at the community level, have become great for building families within families. And you two have just touched on it a little earlier, that the whole club, for instance, with what Mel's been able to achieve, the entire club celebrated. It's not broken off into different branches and different teams. The team doesn't win it, it's the club that wins it. And the fact that it's able to bring all of the people, regardless of age group and era that they played, and it brings them all together. And the fact they're all able to celebrate that together as a club, that's a great thing. And it's not just them; a lot of other clubs are doing that these days, and it's a terrific thing to build relationships and communities.
And that's why the VAFA women's program in particular is growing at such a rapid rate. That's why we are, like clubs like the Gryphons, have now gone from having one team to a couple of teams. Because people want to be around good people, right? They want to come and be in an environment where they might turn up to a social function and go, gee, that was fun. They seemed like a great bunch of people. And suddenly you become connected to the club. So the club just continues to grow and grow and grow. And it was a wonderful achievement on the weekend, Brayden. Their first ever Premier B win. It's a milestone for the club.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And they got it over a side that has been promoted as well in Parkside. The Gryphs came out 7-5-47 to 3-4-22 winners at Packer Park on Saturday morning. It was a great result. Plenty of celebrate. Speaking of celebrating, Old Melburnians, they would have been thrilled with their performance. 14-9-93 got the better of Old Yarra Cobras 0-4-4. So unfortunately, the Cobras went goalless over the weekend. And then Bo Morris's side that we just touched on with Mel, a 6-7-43 to 4-6-30 win over Old Zavs. And then a bit of a twilight fixture out at Latrobe, where Port Melbourne Chargers exceeded their opposition with 4-11-35 to 2 straight win over the Eagles.
And then as we look at the ladder, we've mentioned Bo Morris a couple of times already. They're the only unbeaten team remaining in Premier B, 3 in zip. And then there are 3 teams that make up the top 4 with 2 wins. Port Melbourne, Old Melburnians and Parkside make up the top 4. And then another 3 teams with just 1 win to their name, Old Zaverians, Old Yarra Cobras and the Gryphons, who are in 7th now. And Latrobe are still looking for their first win of the season.
And I reckon Latrobe will be confident this week. They take on Parkside out at Latrobe University. And we've talked about how even this competition is. So that kicks off round 4, Latrobe versus Parkside. The big game between Bo Morris and GLEN EIRA, Old McKINNON, will be one to watch. Port Melbourne Chargers will host Old Yarra Cobras, and the final game of the weekend, the great rivals Old Zaverians taking on Old Melburnians at Basel Reserve, 2:30 on Saturday afternoon. So that wraps up Premier Women's and Premier B Women's. We can talk Women's Divisional now, and we'll start with Division 1 women's footy. 5 divisions this year, plus under-19 Premier Women's. So just to our point earlier about the women's competition growing and growing and growing, this is the reason why. It's a cultural thing. People play footy, yeah, sure. There's more school girls playing footy and more junior girls playing footy than ever before. But in the past, we've had too much leakage where women in particular, girls in particular, have got to sort of 18, 19 and drifted away from sport and never come back. But because of the cultural bonds and just the way footy is now seen in society as being a legitimate sport for everyone, we're not having that leakage anymore. Those girls that previously went off to do something else, whether it was playing another sport or just not playing sport at all, they're sticking around and they're joining a senior footy club.
No, it's great to see the women's game expand as much as it is. 5 divisions, and then that's on top of Premier and Premier B. So many different teams running around in the women's game, and it's a great thing to see. There's so many opportunities for them and pathways for them to continue on their sporting careers, even past that 18, 19 years of age.
Let's run through the scores from the weekend, round 3 of Division 1 Women's. Marcelin 2-6-18 defeated Oakley 1-4-10. Powerhouse 3-10-28 defeated Ormond 3-2-20 by 8 points. Old Carey 6-6-42 defeated St Mary's Salesian 3-7-25 by 17 points. And Monash Blues 5-6-36 defeated Whitefriars 3-7-25 by 11 points. A quick look at the Division 1 ladder. Marcelin lead it. They are undefeated, the only undefeated team on 12 points. Then Powerhouse, Old Carey and Monash on 8 points. Whitefriars, Ormond and Oakley on 4 points, and St Mary's Salesian yet to open their account in 2026. As we take a look, Matty, at Division 2 Women's.
Yeah, so we'll start with UHSVU, who got a big win over Hampton Rovers, 5-9-39 to 2-3-15. Richmond Central just getting the job done against MCC. Just 4-2-26 to 2-9-21. 6 scores to 11 in favour of the hosts, but weren't able to get the job done. Then a couple of big wins to round things out. Bo Morris, 18-14, 122. Caulfield, unfortunately, went scoreless.
So that's Bo Morris' second team against Caulfield's third team.
Against scored to them. And Old Yarra Cobras also went scoreless against Old Camberwell, who had a win 19-17-71 to Old Yarra, who failed to score.
So we take a look at the ladder in Division 2, and we've got Richmond Cobras and UHSVU, the 2 undefeated teams. They're 3 in zip. Then Bo Morris, MCC on 8 points. Old Camberwell and Hampton Rovers on 4 points. Old Yarra Cobras and Caulfield Grammarians yet to register a win in Division 2. Division 3 Women's, Brayden.
Yeah, really exciting. We got some 2 clear standouts here at the moment. Hawthorn is one of those. They had a 10-7-67 to 2-10-22 win over Brunswick on Saturday morning. Mazenod, we touched on their men's team in the Premier C segment. They had a win themselves, the women, with a 4-1-25 to 2-5-17 win over Albert Park. Old Haileybury, 6-11-47 to 4-4-28 win over Port Melbourne Chargers second side. And De La Salle, the ladder leader at the moment, with a 6-12-48 to 1-2-8 win over Fitzroy's third side. So just touching on the ladder quickly, we touched on De La Salle. They're absolutely flying at the moment. They're top of the ladder with a percentage of 543.33. The Hawks in Hawthorn, their percentage undefeated as well, 520%. Then the Bloods of Old Haileybury are sitting third on 2 wins. And then we've got a logjam from 4th to 7th with Fitzroy, Mazenod, Brunswick, Albert Park all on 1 win, and the Chargers still chasing their first win of the season.
So it must be said, a reminder that this is sort of regrading season now coming in over the next couple of weeks, where VAFA HQ, the footy department, will take a look at all the sections, the divisional sections in particular, and have a bit of a look and potentially some regrading just to balance things up to make sure everyone's sort of playing at a level that they belong in and they can sort of turn up every week and be competitive and enjoy their footy. Division 4 results from the weekend. Wattle Park 4-7-31 defeated Canterbury 1-4-10 by 21 points. Big win for Aquinas 12-9-81 over Ormond's second team 1-8, a 73-point win to Aquinas. Old Zaverian second team 4-10-34 defeated GLEN EIRA's. Old McKINNON second team 2-2-14 by 20 points. And the Muggers 6-9-41 over North Brunswick, one behind, a 44-point win there for the Muggers. Wattle Park, the only undefeated team in Division 4, they're 3-0. Aquinas and Old Zavs and the Muggers on 8 points, and then 4 points is Canterbury, Ormond and North Brunswick, and GLEN EIRA bringing up the rear, yet to win a game in Division 4.
And moving to Division 5, a lot of one-sided games this weekend. South Melbourne 4-17-41 over De La Salle 1-1-7. St Kevin's with a win over Elstonwick 6-5-41 at Elstonwick 1-3-9. Parkdale Vultures 8-11-59 defeated West Brunswick 2 behinds. Paranka Legions, the 2 Blue Lions with the best nickname in the VAFA, 6-9-45 over Preston Bull Ants, the 2 behinds. And then Parkside with a 30-point win over Monash Blues 5-7-37 to 1-1-7. And as we turn our attention to the ladder, still 2 unbeaten teams, Parkdale Vultures and Paranka Legions, both with a 3-0 start to the season. Parkdale with a percentage, you thought the percentage of previously was big. No, this is a first. Parkdale with a percentage of 2,450. Paranka Legions, their percentage is only 1,970.
You're undefeated with a percentage of 1,970 and you're sitting second.
Yeah, then there's a bit of a drop-off, just the 1,700% gap between Paran and Parkside, who have got 2 wins to their name, alongside St Kevin's and Preston Bull Ants, who round out the top 5. Monash Blues and West Brunswick and South Melbourne, each with a win to their name. De La Salle and Elstonwick both looking for their first wins of 2026.
And this is where regrading may kick in over the next couple of weeks. We'll keep you posted on all that news as it comes to hand here on For the Love of the Game. That wraps up the women's competition for round 3. After the break, we'll talk Holmesglen Under-19 Premier with our man LACHIE MOIR. That's next on For the Love of the Game. Looking for VAFA updates on the go? Download the brand new VAFA app today. Get live scores, fixtures, ladders, and all the latest VAFA news right at your fingertips. Whether you're a player, supporter, or just love local footy, the VAFA app keeps you in the game. Search VAFA in your app store and download it now. Welcome back to For the Love of the Game. It's time to talk Holmesglen Under-19 Premier Competition. And, well, joining us is our man, LACHIE MOIR from VAFA Media. LACHIE, welcome.
Thanks, Jay. It's good to be back again. Tips still haven't improved, though, so I really need to turn a corner.
I can give you an out, though. 9 of the 15 games this season, LACHIE, have been decided by 11 points or less. 9 of the 15 games by 11 points or less. This is one heck of a competition.
It is. They certainly keep me on the toes, the under-19. So, it's very entertaining to start the year. And, it's been a great couple of rounds of footy so far.
You picked 2 on the weekend. Senshi got 3. So, he's got 10 out of 15. You've got 7 out of 15. So, given how many close games there have been, tipping is a bit of a nightmare. Let's go back and have a look at some of these in round 3. We'll start at Glen Huntly Park. This was a thriller. Old Brighton just getting over the line. 10-10-70 defeated Caulfield 10-4-64.
Yeah, Caulfield came out hot. They kicked the first 4 goals. And speaking to the coach, he said it was their best pressure game of the season. But as good teams do, Old Brighton wrestled the momentum back. They made it a bit of a grind and a close contest and got their noses in front. But Caulfield did kick too late to make it interesting. And Brighton just held on. And Coach Travis O'Donoghue of Old Brighton said he was very relieved to secure that gritty win. So look, Brighton were too good in the end, but Caulfield is showing real improvement this year. From where they finished last year, they've definitely been impressive.
Lockie, so many close fixtures that we've already touched on to start the season. Can't look past Waverley Oval, though. It's always good when we get a 1-point win, and it was D-Lar against St Kevin's, and the hosts just managed to find a way.
Yeah, what an absolute thrill at 1 point. Dominant first half for St Kevin's. They really controlled it early. Coach Paul Greenham was really happy with how they started, but they just missed a couple of key opportunities in that third quarter. And De La Salle, there was a bit of a scoring in there, and they had it in the last quarter, the big breeze, and they stayed in it and they capitalised. And yeah, they've been good this season. They hung in, took their chances late, and were really composed under pressure. And sort of speaking to losing coach Paul Greenham, he was sort of saying that you're just against these good sides, and obviously they've got the ex-AFL player Andy Otten as the coach. You just cannot leave the door ajar. So really impressive by De La Salle, but don't write off St Kevin's. They were still impressive, and probably just that scoring end in the last quarter cost them, I would say.
Lockie, I wanted to touch on the game that would have had a bit of a local flavour. Beau Morris beating St Bede's Mentone 9-11-65 to 6-20-56, gentlemen.
That's a coach killer.
That's a rough day.
Yeah, absolute coach killer. Definitely a bit of a local rivalry, this one. St Bede's controlled the first half, and just unfortunately their inaccuracy kept Beau Morris in the contest. They probably should have had it all wrapped up. But Beau Morris lifted hugely after half-time. They kicked four goals against the breeze, so different to the St Kevin's game, and they had that belief, and the momentum began to shift, and structural changes late worked for Beau Morris, and they were managed to get over the top, and Coach Nathan Prosser couldn't be happy with the result. It was a huge result for them, he said, and he was really impressed with how the group earned that game and kicked the goals against the breeze, and he said it was one of the best wins he can remember during his time as coach. Old
Scotch and Old Zabs played our KTV doubleheader exclusive on Community TV on the weekend. Part one of that was this under-19s game. Old Zabs 9-10-64 got home against Old Scotch on the road 9-3-57 by 7 points.
Yeah, look, Old Scotch, they've been thereabouts in the first couple of games, but they just cannot get over the line, unfortunately. They haven't registered a win yet in 2026. And speaking to Coach Hugo Borum, he was just sort of saying they just need to be better for longer. And unfortunately, they're just not doing that. And Xavier, or Old Zabs, were just able to capitalise in those key moments and were slightly more consistent across the four quarters. So be interesting to see how Old Scotch bounce back next week. They've got Uni Blues, who also don't have a win yet, so that'll be a very important game for them. But disappointing start for Old Scotch. Yeah, but Old Xavier, look, full credit to them. They just played a little bit better on the day and definitely earned the 4 points.
And then speaking of Uni Blues, they went to face Parkdale, but the Vultures were too good in the end. This was the biggest margin of the game, 26 points in the end, 13-10 to 8-14, Lockie.
Very complete performance from Parkdale. Really put together a great four-quarter effort. Seamus Williams kicking the 4 goals, and another big mention for Eden Honan. Midfield impact plus some goals, absolutely crucial. GA really played a great team first attitude sort of footy in this contest. Strong intercept, strong rebound game. And Uni Blues just unfortunately couldn't go with them. Conversion is a problem with them, speaking to their coach, Steve Boakes, as it is a lot of teams this season. Just cannot seem to convert when they have the opportunities, and just a couple of defensive lapses off kick-ins really cost them as well. And I think Parkdale were able to go coast to coast on many occasions, so that hurts you as well. So Steve Boakes saying, they were competitive, but just unfortunately poor in conversion again, probably cost them the game. But Parkdale, look, they seem to be trending up, and yeah, look, the Blues obviously take on Old Scotch. That's a huge game for both of their seasons.
Take a look at the ladder 3 weeks in. It just reinforces just how tight this competition is. As we said, 9 of the 15 games decided by 11 points or less is a ridiculous stat. De La Salle, the only undefeated team there on 12 points. We have a bunch of teams on 8. Parkdale Vultures, St Bede's Mentone Tigers, Old Brighton, Old Zabs, all sitting on 8 points. Zabs sitting in 5th. Then Caulfield Grammarians on 6 points. St Kevin's and Bowie on 4, Uni Blues on 2, and Old Scotch yet to win a game so far in 2026. We're talking Holmesglen Under-19 Premier Men's with Lachie Moir. Lachie mentioned the tip. Said she's on 10, you're on 7. You got some work to do, my friend. Let's run through round 4. What do you got for us? St Bede's Mentone Tigers taking on D-Lar 9:20 at Mentone Reserve.
Yeah, another tricky one to start off here, first v third. Look, I think De La Salle started hot, and I'm happy to go with them here away from home.
Uni Blues versus Old Scotch, that critical game you mentioned, 9:20 Melbourne Uni.
Look, I'd like to be with Old Scotch, but unfortunately I just can't trust them. I think the Uni Blues at home, for me, will get over the line.
St Kevin's versus Parkdale Vultures, 2 p.m. at TH King.
Played a very good side last week, St Kevin's. Like that form coming through the De La Salle game. So, yeah, I'll I'll say St Kevin's to bounce back at home there.
Old Brighton versus Beaumaris, 4:45 at Brighton Beach Oval.
Yeah, another one that'll be a very good contest. Beaumaris obviously got the win last weekend. Old Brighton at home, though, I think I'll take them at home at Brighton Beach to get it done.
And our live KTV game, live and exclusive on Community TV, 5 o'clock at Toorak Park, probably from about 4:45, really. Old Zavs taking on Caulfield Grammarians.
Yeah, 5th v 6th, probably game of the round in terms of how close it'll be. Look, I'm going to go Caulfield. I like the improvement this year. They've been very impressive. Really like what I'm hearing out of that club. So Caulfield hopefully get it done on the road, and that'll really kickstart their season if they can get the 4 points there.
So the KTV doubleheader this week, Old Zavs and Caulfield, the seniors game into the 19s. That will start around about 4:45-ish, live on KTV from Toorak Park. Lockie, thanks for your time as always, mate. We'll talk to you next week.
No worries, boys. See you next week.
Welcome back to For the Love of the Game. It's time to talk big bags, and there were some hefty bags this week in round 3. We should actually be thinking about getting a sponsor, some sort of, Glad bags, those big industrial garbage bags, because you would have needed them this week to carry some of the goals. Mitch Brown from Parkdale booted 12. That was our best for the weekend in round 3. And Mitch, as we know, if he plays enough games, ton watch is very much on the cards.
Yeah, you're not wrong. He must have been very angry after being held to 1 goal, and he must have listened into us with some disappointment and said, I'm getting back in that segment.
Do you reckon that's what happened?
I reckon there's every chance, and I mean it was great following it because the WhatsApp chat was buzzing during the game. We were getting updates every 20 or so minutes as to what he was on. It was great to follow.
Yeah, finished with 12. Mitch Brown, Charlie Abbott from Scobbs under-19 Division 1 team kicked 10. Zach Harwood from Old Carey's under-19 team kicked 10. And Archie Galvin from OM's under-19 team kicked 10. So we had 4 bags of double figures on the weekend. Mitch Brown with 12, Charlie Abbott, Zach Harwood and Archie Galvin all with 10. And then on 9 was Sam Littress from Uni Blacks Thirds. Alex Lukic from Collegians kicked 8 goals over the weekend. And so did Jack Paletti from St Mary's Salesian Resi. So 12 for Mitch Brown, 3 bags of 10, a 9 and 2 8s. 7 players kicked 7 over the weekend, including Emily Menegola. She kicked 7 goals for Old Zavs, Premier B Women's Seniors team. Only 19, by the way. But she played 12 games last year, seniors, so she's ineligible for Rising Star. But she kicked 7 on the weekend, which leads us into Ton Watch, thanks to Sharon, and leading, to no surprise, after his massive weekend, 22 goals for the season, Mitch Brown, after kicking 12. He leads with 22. Will Hart from Old Carey, who kicked the big bag last week, he's on 20. Sitting on 17, we've got 3 players. Charlie Abbott, who kicked the 10 this weekend, he's on 17. Oscar Slizis kicked another 5, he's on 17. And Will Young kicked 4, he's on 17 as well. So then you throw in Sam Grimley, who kicked 5, he's on 16. So you've got 6 players there. 1 on 22, Mitch Brown, 2 goals clear of Will Hart, and then 3 back to Abbott, Slizis, and Will Young. Sam Grimley sitting on 16. In the VAFA women's competition, Tessa Bowden from Hawthorn Seniors booted 6. So she's up to 10 for the season. Level with Georgia Harris, also on 10 from Port Melbourne Chargers Seniors in Prem B. Georgia kicked 2 on the weekend. Emily's 7 goals. Emily Melangola, we mentioned. She's up to 9 now after kicking 7. Alongside Mia Cowan from Old Scotch on 9. And Luca Travaskis, last week's VAFA Rising Star, also on 9. Well, gentlemen, the time's come to talk tips. How do we think we went in round 3?
Out of 15? I reckon I might have got 9.
I reckon you're right.
I would have taken 7 from what I can remember.
Well, you got 10.
I'll take it.
So you actually got 10. You've increased your lead over Maddie to 5. You're on 29, and Maddie's now on 24.
It's not looking good. I've got to straighten
Plenty of
myself
time if you're good enough, as Lou Richards used to always say. Let's start with Premier Women's Round 4 action, and it kicks off 9:20 Saturday morning, Brighton Beach. Old Brighton versus Westbourne. Brayden, you're in front, so you tip first.
Go Old Brighton.
Yeah, I've gone with Old Brighton here. There'll be a few games that are a bit tricky to call this weekend, but I've tipped Old Brighton for this one.
Old Brighton coming off their first win in Premier Women's. Westbourne chasing their first win in Premier Women's. Caulfield versus Kew, 11:40 at Glen Huntly Park.
Caulfield.
Yeah, Caulfield.
St Kevin's versus Willie CYMS, 2 p.m. at Rigetti.
Does anyone else get the sense of what happened last year and CY's caused that massive upset?
A massive upset, that's right. It was a KTV game at Fearon and they spanked them.
But I'm going to go St Kevin's.
I can see where this is going. St Kevin's for me as well, Jace.
Our live VAFA TV game, 2 p.m. this weekend. You can see this game live streaming on VAFA TV from Brunswick Street. It's FITZROY top of the table against West Brunswick, the Maggies.
Yeah, I reckon this one's really hard to pick in that log jam of 1 to 7. I'm going to go the Maggies.
All right, here's a chance. I'm going to tip FITZROY in this one.
And the final game of the weekend, Old Scotch versus Old Geelong, 250 down at Camberwell.
The Cardinals for me.
Yeah, I've gone with Old Scotch too, but this will be a beauty.
And yeah, Geelong have been, what are they coming off a big win, aren't they? They had a big 10-goal
Yeah,
win over the
Williamstown.
weekend, so they're in great form. Premier B men's, Maddie's Achilles heel and specialty at the same time. Unusual that happens. Round 4 action. Actually, where are you?
I'm
on
a
the
man.
TV?
I'm a man of many talents.
No,
Jace.
no. To be fair, you've picked 5 out of 15 for the year. As we mentioned, incredibly difficult to tip Premier B early on in the season. Let's see how we go this week. Brayden, Old Camberwell versus Old Melburnians.
I reckon Old Camberwell, they're rolling now. And they're
Time to get up and going.
I was quite happy when you said I tipped 5, and then you added for the year. Camberwell and Old Melburnians. I've tipped Old Camberwell here.
Old Geelong versus Collegians. Collegians top of the table undefeated. One thing we must mention at the time of recording here is that Sam Frost has been cited by the MRO and Max Pinchbeck has been cited by the MRO. We're not sure whether or not they're going to challenge those at the tribunal yet. Both, I understand, are 3 weeks down to 2. So they could challenge that and get off completely. As I say, at the time of recording, we don't know. But it could be a very different game if Frost and Pinchbeck didn't play.
Yeah, and then you take into account if Lukic is knocking on the door, Box Hill must want to get him in, but I'm still going back Collegians in the hope that Lukic plays.
Yeah, I think they're still a very good side, even if they've got those 2 players out. But I'm going to go Collegians as well.
Old Ivanhoe versus Old Kerry. The time is now for the Hoers. Can they get their season up and going?
This Panthers outfit is seriously good, and I think they're going to take care of business here. I just think the Hoers are missing too many key players from last year.
Yeah, I'm going with Old Kerry too. I think they've been really good to start the season, but for inaccurate kicking in a couple of their games, they could well be another unbeaten team to this point.
2 teams that have shown plenty early in the season, De La Salle and Ajax.
I think D-La at home.
I'm back in the Jackers. I'm loving what Lockie Buzzard has done to start the season. I'm going to tip them here.
And the final game of Premier B for round 4, Willie CYMS versus Bowie at Fearon.
I reckon I'm going to get back on the CY's bandwagon this week. I think Bo Morris, they're a very good side, but I think CY's just got a little bit too much at home.
Yeah, they're a good side, CY's. I'm going to back Bo Morris. They know how to win. They're going to get back on. They're going to snap the 1-game losing streak and get back on winning form.
Bowie on the road for Maddie, which brings us to William Buck Premier Men's round 4 action. 4 of the 5 games this weekend on VAFA Media that you'll be able to tune in and enjoy. We're going to start with our SEN match of the day from 1:45 on the SEN app. You can listen in live. You can watch the game live, simulcast on VAFA TV on the VAFA website as well. This one should be an absolute ripper, Maddie. You'll be there for Old Haileybury and Old Scotch.
Can't wait for this game. Really looking forward to it at Princes Park. Huge 4 points up for grabs for both teams, but Braden's leading, so he's going to tip first.
Very diplomatic.
Going to wait for him to make his move first.
Oh, Matty, you've given me less time to think about this one. This is going to, I think as you said, it's a ripper. This is a genuine 50-50. Like Haileybury, what they brought that first half, if they bring that for 3 and big quarters, I'm going to back them to cause a bit of an upset here. I think what they got the taste of it, and they'll be very annoyed that they didn't go on and finish the job against Old Brighton. I reckon they've got a bit of a statement to make.
Yeah, I like Old Haileybury for this one.
Old Zavarians in Caulfield down at Toorak Park. As I mentioned earlier, it's part of our community TV double header starting from 1:55. You can watch the senior game also live and free on VAFA TV as well as KTV. And then we've got the under-19 Premier game immediately afterwards, Zabs and Caulfield, exclusive to community TV. So Zabs and Caulfield at Toorak Park.
Zabs for me.
Yeah, Spralia makes such a big difference when he's in there, and I think him back, and with more soldiers to come, I'm expecting Old Zavs to win.
What a game this next one promises to be. Live and exclusive community TV from 1:55. You can get your community TV subscription online, or if you're a Herald Sun subscriber or a News Corp subscriber, Brayden, you've already got access to community TV.
Yeah, you certainly do, and I'd be sitting down to watch this one because this may be the hardest game we've tipped all year, mate.
Uni Blues and St Kevin's.
Oh, put it this way. If Uni Blues are as good as we think they are, they're going to go win this game, but St Kevin's is so good as well. I'm going to back the home side. I'm going to back the Twin Towers up top in Grimley and Stewart just to grab hold of this game, and I reckon they might only be held to a couple each, but I just reckon their presence is going to make a world of difference.
Stars everywhere you look across both lineups in this one. I'm a little jealous that I'm not going to be front and centre of the commentary box as much as I'm looking forward to Old Haileybury and Old Scotch. But I'm going to back Uni Blues at home. I think they'll just have a bit too much for St Kevin's here.
Community TV 155, Uni Blues and St Kevin's. That should be a ripper, as should this next one. Very interesting game, this one. This also on VAFA TV from 155, so you can watch it live and free on the weekend. On your phone, on your computer, smart TV, whatever you like. Old Trinity taking on St Bernard's at home.
I've tipped against Old Trinity the last 2 weeks, I think, and they've gone and got the job done, but the Snow Dogs, they're going to win me back.
You're still off the tees.
What
have they got to do to win you over?
They're not. I'm not off them, but
You're just not on them.
Not this week. I just feel like
teasing.
I just feel like the Snow Dogs, they'll have a point to prove. Like, they're Jekyll and Hyde at the moment. They're so up and down. And Steve Alessio would have had some words this week at training. They'll go back to basics, and I just think they're going to snap that losing streak on the road.
Lost 7 in a row on the road.
All good things come to an end. It's not a good thing, but it's a bad thing for them. But I reckon this is the one where they click into gear. They would have learned a lot from St Kevin's. They're a pretty proud footy club, the Snow Dogs, and I just reckon this is the week.
At the risk of being the kiss of death, I'm all aboard the Tees. I love how they've attacked the start of the season and what Donald McDonald's been able to bring so early on in the season, taking the step up. They were so good against the Uni Blacks last week, and I'm going to tip them here to win.
Final game of the weekend, Old Brighton taking on Uni Blacks down at Brighton Beach Oval. Old Brighton looking for 21st straight win at the Fortress. Mind you, Uni Blacks beat them in the middle of last year. That was at Melbourne Uni. So what do we think? Brighton and Blacks. Can anyone mount an argument for the Blacks?
There's every sort of argument based on some of the fluctuations we're seeing in results this year. But this Tunners outfit, they're just clicking on all cylinders, which is scary because we're only 3 games in. And again, but I think they'll just be a bit too strong. I reckon this game will go right down to the wire, but the Tunners in a pretty comfortable win late.
Pretty sure, actually, as it happens, that Uni Blacks might have been the last team to beat Old Brighton at Brighton Beach Oval. It was a long time ago.
Round 17 of 2023, I think it was.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. So they've got form. But Old Brighton, for me, they were challenged a little bit last week and just flexed their muscle and got the job done. I'm going to tip the Tunners once more.
Tunners for both of you. So VAFA Media, as I mentioned this week, round 4. 4 Premier Men's games of the 5, plus the Premier Women's game as well between Fitzroy and West Brunswick at Brunswick St Oval. That one is available on VAFA TV live and free from 1:55 on Saturday. Plus the Holmesglen U19 Premier game live and exclusive on KTV. That game coming to you after the seniors, 4:45. Bit of Saturday night football again, which has been a wonderful innovation this year. All those senior games in the afternoon get over and done with. And then you can sit down and focus on the Under-19 Premier game on KTV.
No, it's fantastic. And it's great that local councils are investing in the facilities to allow it. I know Marsland's playing Parkdale Vultures in a bit of a twilight game in Premier C as well, which is really exciting. So, and it gives you an opportunity. If you're finished up the road watching another local game, why not hang around or drive down and see what the other club's got on offer? Test out the canteens as well. A good canteen never goes astray.
So Old Zabs and Caulfield Grammarians, that Under-19 Holmesglen Premier game from 4:45 on KTV, live and exclusive on the weekend. That wraps it up for us. Round 3 is in the books, gentlemen. Well done, as always. We'll catch you next week. What are you looking forward to most this weekend?
Oh, yeah.
I've put you on the spot.
Yeah. I reckon I'm just going to make a prediction. I don't know what game. We're going to get an upset that is going to cause all ramifications. I don't know where, but it's just going to happen, and we'll be talking about it next week.
I just love being at the footy, calling it in whichever game that is, and I'm really looking forward to Old Haileybury, Old Scotch. I haven't seen either of them yet, so I'm just really looking forward to getting back in the commentary chair. I understand Petchy will be back from Hawaii, so I look forward to saying aloha to him. But hopefully we've got a really good game, a really good game in store at Princes Park on Saturday.
Petchy and his Okanuis and his board shorts. That's not a very good thought. Wonderful to have you both with us. Hey, thanks very much, everyone, for joining us for the love of the game. Round 3 is in the books. We'll look ahead next week, and we'll talk all about round 4 and break it all down for you for the love of the game.